Hi ladies, I'm Rosenda. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am sharing a recipe with you from my Every Woman's binding of the American Woman's Cookbook. It's from the 1950s and I inherited from my grandma. And I started a cookbook course on my Instagram in April, and all of you wanted to see more recipes from this book. So today begins my first recipe, and I will be sharing a 1950s chocolate cake along with 1950s frosting. This will be my first video in my 1950s cookbook series, which goes along with my vintage homemaking. So are you ready to get started? Let's bake like it's 1955. Today is my husband Ruben's birthday, and I'm making him a sour cream cocoa cake or chocolate cake. Now this recipe suggests that you mix the cocoa in boiling water and stir until smooth and let that cool. So I didn't get to show that in the video, but I did that first, and I also creamed the shortening and sugar in the mixer before I began adding the dry ingredients. The recipe also suggests adding the sour cream to the dry ingredients and then the eggs, which are the egg whites, along with the vanilla. So I'm going to add my liquid ingredients here, and that will be the last thing before I mix it all together. I've always been inspired by vintage cooking and homemaking because of my mom and grandma. My grandma was a housewife in the 1940s and 50s, and my mom was a 1960s housewife. I grew up seeing their nostalgic photographs, and I have memories of watching them cook and bake. And I hope that following this recipe will give me a sense of carrying on this vintage homemaking tradition. After the cake batter is ready, I'm going to prepare my cake pans. I add a little bit of oil, and then I'm going to add about a tablespoon of sugar to each pan. And I did notice a piece of brown sugar that ended up in my white sugar bowl, so that's what that is in case you're wondering. This is a secret that my mom taught me, and this is what the women used to do in those days. It just helps the batter not stick and helps the cake be able to pop out of the cake pans quicker. So this is a little trick I've learned from them, and I don't know, do you ever do this with your cake pans? Let me know if you learned this from your mom or grandma. And now I'm going to pour the cake batter into both pans. And by the way, these pans are vintage. They did belong to my grandma, and she used them a long time ago, which is one reason why it's so special that I get to use them today. Now I get to put the cakes into the oven and bake them at 350 degrees for 30 minutes. While the cakes are in the oven baking, I am going to make the frosting. This is the recipe I will be doing, an eggless confectioner's frosting. I will be modifying one ingredient, and you will see that later on, but basically it's just confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar, vanilla, and milk. Then I'm going to mix all that together, and this is where the fun all begins. So what secret ingredient do you think I'm going to add? Cream cheese. Did you guess right? I have to have cream cheese in my frosting. At this point, I do add food coloring, and it's a neon blue because I wanted to make a retro vintage aqua color because my husband is masculine and I wanted a blue cake, but since we are doing a vintage 1950s cake, I figured why not go with a vintage blue. So I'm doing the vintage aqua, and it looks pretty actually, so I like it, and I think he will too. And now it's time to take the two cakes out of the oven. I set them aside on a cooling rack so that they can cool. An hour has gone by, and I'm going to frost the cake. I'm using this pretty vintage cake platter that was given to me by my mom. It was actually one she used in her day. I'm going to take one of the cakes out, and did you see how fast that was? That was so easy, wasn't it? I guess that method does work. So I'm going to cut the top off first and make it a flat top, but I'm going to save that extra for later or to munch on because it's so good. And actually the cake looks very moist. And now it's time to frost the cake. So I'm going to get a big dollop of frosting and I'm going to put it on the first layer. Since this is a 2-layer cake, I'm going to frost the bottom first, and this will be a crumb coat. I'm going to do a crumb coat over the both layers and then wait a few hours for it to cool and then do a final coat. And now I'm going to add the second layer. And I will cut off the top of this cake too. And I will frost this layer exactly like I did the first one. I always love icing or frosting cakes. It's so relaxing to me. In the beginning when I first started baking, I really didn't like this part. I really got impatient with it and I just couldn't wait to frost it all up, and then I would make it very messy. So I've learned to take my time, be patient, enjoy the time that I'm icing it and frosting it. And through the years, I've become more patient and I've taken this time to just think and enjoy and to really just see the art and beauty in frosting the cake. And now for the big reveal. The cake is finished and I'm going to set it on the table. We will be singing happy birthday and celebrate with this 1950s birthday cake. Thank you for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make a 1950s cake. I hope you subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I will see you again in my next video.